Intervju Radia Študent.
En lep pozdrav v intervjuju Radia Študent, kjer danes gostimo portugalskega kitarista, strunarja, improvizatorja Manuela Moto, ki nocoj gostuje v serialki sodobne glasbe Defonija na Metelkovi v klubu Gromka, kjer se bo koncert predvidoma začel ob 21. uri. Predno zaplujemo v pogovor z Manuelom Moto, pa poslušamo eno njegovo solistično improvizacijo za električno kitaro z njegove zadnje plošče naslovljene Sings. So, Mr. Manuel Mota, welcome to our studio.
Thank you very much.
We were just now listening to one of the tracks from your latest solo CD called Sings, with 8 solo electric guitar improvisation. I was quite surprised when I read a short review about the record in Paris Transatlantic by Dan Warburton, how similar we thought about it. It seems we both hear in it a kind of extreme introspection. So could you tell us more about the record, and maybe also why the title Sings?
Well, about the introspection, I think when you, at least me, when I play solo, I think it's solo playing is always a bit of introspection. Lots of things you deal with when you are playing with another people. You don't need them when you are playing solo, and you are just dealing with yourself. And so I think it's always introspection when you play solo. What was the other question?
Why the title Sings, since there are no singing in it?
There's some singing in the head, and I've been trying to be more focused on melodic and creating a melody like some references I have of singers, and I use that on the development of my phrasing. So, but the title is usually isn't. It could be that or any other thing. It's not a very important thing. It's not a concept.
There is this kind of hum that is present on these latest records, which for me gives me an additional element to the music, some kind of warmth that surrounds both the feeling of isolation and openness. How do you enter recording of a solo record compared to performing your music live in front of the audience, which is probably totally different context then?
Yeah, I usually, when I record alone in my house. And
Why the house? Why not the studio, for example?
I prefer, because I don't have to think about some things that I don't want to when I'm recording. For instance, like money or hours spent or something like that. So in my house I have the time I want, and I'm used to the equipment, so I'm used to the room. So, well, it's, in a way I'm lazy, it's a bit more comfortable for me. About the background noise, that's the idea, it's to give a bit more warmth. And when I listen to other records, I always like, and I feel much more near those records when I hear some errors, some background noise. Those kinds of things for me are, I think they bring some human value to the music that has been playing, actually. So, for instance, solo guitar records, I don't like when they are completely without any noise, like very clean, very processed. I just don't feel...
Yeah, do you feel a difference when you perform your solo guitar music live? Is there a kind of different feel maybe that you enter while performing?
Only if anything goes wrong, because if everything is okay for me, it's the same, because if I'm really well concentrated, it's the same if I have audience or not. But of course, if something goes wrong, well, I'm exposed in a concert, and it's not when I'm home, so, or recording.
If we follow the line from your solo record, let's say Leopardo from 2002, and continue with Outubro from 2007 and finish with Sing, how do you see them in terms of your guitar language, its developments, changes into different things that you seek to explore in it? Do you see any link in them or continuation, or...?
Mainly, I think I've been cleaning up what is not essential in my playing since Leopardo until now, so I'm now playing much more simple, mainly. So lots of techniques and lots of information in a short period of time. Now I'm trying to get rid of that and playing only the essential thing for me, which is now a bit related with this singing, for instance, of, I don't know, I've been listening to a lot of Billie Holiday, and it has been big inspiration for me. So.
Yeah. Well, when I talk about the guitar connected to history of improvised music, I got the feeling you can't escape the shadow of late Derek Bailey. His ideas of non-idiomatic improvisation are well known, but in your playing there is still a feeling of constant references to, let's say, blues, rock or jazz. But I got the feeling that they are always a little suppressed, used only as a springboard to your more personal language. How is your relation to tradition? You said that now you are some kind of cleaning up your music.
My relation with the tradition is I usually try to, when I'm playing, to pay some kind of tribute to the references I have, and I have a lot of references, and sometimes they change from one day to the other. Sometimes I'm more focused in some, other days I'm probably more focused in some others. But I try to, I'm not showing references. I don't care if people understand or not those references. But for my work and for the construction of what I'm trying to do, I have. So I'm not trying to cut with any historical references. I use that.
Yeah.
And for me it's important.
Roughly, one can say there are two divisions in your work, at least how I see it. One is sparse, delicate, intimate finger-picking style of your solo records or works with other people, like work with Margarida Garcia, Ernesto Rodriguez, Say Miguel, to name a few. And the other is interest in more dance and flowing drone music with the likes of David Maragna and his group also Exotico, early work of Rafael Toral, Phil Niblock, etc. Am I on the right track? I mean, there is quite a difference in bare-naked finger-picking style of playing, of your recent playing and the sound world of prepared guitar of some of your earlier recordings.
Mm-hmm. Well, the prepared guitar work was a kind of period where I was trying lots of things and I didn't know what was going to be my way. And so I think for me it's all that period is kind of, it's not, how can I say, it's kind of when you are trying the first things to see. So I after a while I got into more minimal things, and but I got bored with that because I was not, I was feeling the need of to play. So because in the end of that process I was not playing anything, I was using this gadget, e-bows and things, and I was waiting. So it was more kind of sound research for me, and it helped me a lot to understand the instrument and to get into the instrument. But I don't think I think it was just experimentation. Only when I started to play with only with the fingers, and I got into this language.
And what was for you personally the moment when you became interested in, let's say, improvisation or so-called experimental music? Was that part of direct influence from your environment, seeing somebody playing live, or just listening to records, or what was the moment when you got interesting to explore the guitar?
It's kind of a natural process, because when I started working, I started alone, and around me my friends were not musicians, so I started alone in my house, and I was since very young very big listener and buyer. My parents didn't like, but I was always buying records and I was listening to everything. So and it was on that process that I got to know the more experimental things. It was something that I was always researching, and I got into that, and more interested into that. And maybe this noise and industrial, and even maybe like jazz rock were the things that made me think about playing. Yes, it's when I got to know this more experimental thing. Before I was listening to a lot rock and blues, but I was never thinking about starting to play. Only when I got into the more experimental thing, I thought, well, maybe I can play as well, and I started to be interested in.
Yeah. Okay, we'll talk more about how you went playing in public, but now we'll listen to a bit of one song, this time on acoustic guitar from your record Outubro. Will you play tonight both acoustic and electric?
Just electric.
Just electric, yeah.
I didn't play acoustic yet in concert.
Really? Why not?
I'm still not. I don't feel I'm still very secure. I think. Well, and for this kind of tour, I can't carry guitars.
You would be like some kind of desperado.
I had problems even with one, like in an airplane. They didn't let me put in the luggage.
Really?
To take the guitar like this.
So it's good you are not double bass player.
para um minuto.
Okay, we are back with Manuel Mota, guitar player from Portugal. You said that experimental music was a kind of music that drove you also out of your cozy room and into the public. You also run your own label, Headlight. Based on labels I know from Portugal, it seems from outsider point of view that there must be quite an interest for improvised music there. I mean, also labels like Esquilo, Creative Sources, of course, even more contemporary jazz-oriented labels like Clean Feet. So, can we hear a perspective on Portugal's scene on this form from insider?
Well, I think the labels that were created, I think it's just from just because of the people that created it. It was not like a necessity. I think all of those names, Esquilo is Luis Jacinto, and Creative Sources is the musician as well, Ernesto Rodrigues. They really love to do it. So, and they started the labels just because they wanted to release things, and none of them were filling a hole because people was wanting to buy. So I think they don't sell any records almost, and but they do that for themselves and for the musicians they like. For me, Headlights was just a way to release my works, and now I'm still doing it. Actually, some time ago I was a bit, how can I say?
Frustrated, or?
Yes, frustrated with working for the label and because I didn't have money to put out records, and so there was no motivation, and I was just doing that for my own records, which was a bit more limited. Now I'm restarting the label again with works from other people, which I'm going to start now, and so I'm much more motivated to work on that as well. But the scene, in these last maybe 3 years, before that, it was very poor. There was a lot of musicians, but there was no audience, no places to play. And these last 2 or 3 years, the thing got a bit more energy from some new people that arrived to this and started to organize, and they were really interested in having and seeing and organizing concerts, and it made almost seem like there was a scene of improvised music or experimental music in Lisbon. Now, actually, in the last month it's a bit more lazy again. Let's see.
How do you see role of some older figures in Portuguese scene, like Telecto, violin player Carlos Zingaro, etc.? Do you see them as important figures for the local scene, for Portuguese scene?
To be honest, I don't think so. Well, I think Carlos Zingaro is a very important musician, and he I think until some time ago he was I think the only name the only person who had the courage to work seriously on improvised music, and he was really great, and he was able to internationalize his career, and I think it was great. But I think I don't know people who got into it because of them. So, and because I think both of those names are very close person, so it's not easy to deal with, and so maybe, I don't know. I think they were more happy when they were the only ones, actually.
How about the role of some foundations like Gulbenkian that founded this big Atlantic Waves Festival in Great Britain? You mentioned that mainly the scene works on self-initiatives, but do you still get any funding? Because improvised music is always some kind of on the margin, in a way.
Yeah, I think this kind of music will always be on the margin, and I think it's where it should be. And sometimes, for instance, last year and 2 years ago, those big daily newspapers would put out articles about me and names like me, and I think it was very strange because nobody will listen. Nobody, like the newspaper, they have like 2 million of copies, and there's 100 people who listens to me, so I don't think that very realistic. But I lost.
Like the foundations like Gulbenkian, no.
I think Gulbenkian has a really nice tradition of helping more marginal art, actually, and that precise festival was nice, but it was nothing that is very important and that keep the musicians doing it. So it's a nice weekend, and they organize big encounters in between Portuguese, and they always want some foreigner well known to play with them. So it was in a way a bit a complex way of putting the music and to show the music, because if I say I want to go to the Atlantic Waves but I want to play alone and I don't want any well-known foreigner, they will not want, so it's a bit complex.
For the end of this interview, in past years all we could was to read about and listen to Manuel Mota from records. It was almost like Manuel Mota is some kind of hidden treasure from Portugal. Now it seems you tour much more and go and play places outside of your home country. Was the reason only an organizing aspect of touring, or there was also maybe something more deep and personal behind it?
Both, actually. Now I really want to play much more live and tour than I wanted some time ago, and I am not the best person to organize tours, so for these last ones I had been helped by friends, or I even got an agent, but from that I didn't got any new. but yes, it's both, because I really now I feel much more ready to do it, and I want more, and I'm lost again.
Well, I think that was it.
Yeah.
So I'm really glad that this is now so, and I will be able to listen to you live tonight.
Thank you. Yeah, finally we meet.
Yeah. So thank you for coming to the radio station and for this interview. And I wish you a great concert tonight in Ljubljana.
Thank you. Thank you for listening my lost sentences.
Torej, tole je bil intervju z kitaristom, portugalskim kitaristom Manuelom Moto, ki bo nocoj nastopil kot solo kitarist na električni kitari v svojih improvizacijah v klubu Gromka na Metelkovi v seriji Defonija. Koncert se predvidoma začne ob 21. uri.
Intervju Radia Študent.
It's the same with me today. Luckily we have the documentation. Now it's relaxed to just busy day. And I think it's why I